Tonight on Pia.
I think what's interesting about health is you have to take it in your own hands now.
I have to pay more attention to my body. I have to take more attention as to what I'm putting into it.
I don't honestly know how I made it through like 28 to 35.
Everything counts. Not eating properly.
You do reflect back and say, I wouldn't have done this 5 years, 10 years.
We all have to deal with the fact that we're losing our youth.
This is going to be fun. Surveys tell us that medical care is the #1 concern of Canadians. We all have this sense that the system is broke and broken. And you combine this paranoia with the specter of an aging boomer generation, and it's easy to think that we are heading for a crisis in medical care. Too many old hippies getting sick, too few worker bees to pay the freight. But wait a minute. There's something fundamentally flawed about this line of thinking. The fact is, there's been a tectonic shift in the way we live. More and more of us are taking personal responsibility for the shape we're in. We stay active, we eat right, and we want to enjoy our lives all the way to the end until we rejoin that cosmic energy field in the sky. Of course, disease happens, but with all the medical information available to us on the internet, we often know what's wrong with us before we visit our family doctor.
I got a very unfortunate, highly infectious, for me, for my body, not for others, bacterial infection from a series of bug bites that I subsequently got on a holiday. And I went to, the infectious disease guy, and he basically said, well, where did this happen? And I told him, and he said, no, you're fine. Let me just check out, everything else. No, you're fine. And I said, well, how do you explain this? I, hold out the pictures of my legs, and he goes, those aren't your legs. And I said, well, do you think I'm lying? I mean, why would I come with these pictures? I went to dermatologists, and when I finally got somebody that actually listened to me and heard what I said, and they didn't worry about labeling what it was, they just listened and then tested. Well, guess what? I came back positive for that bug bite bacteria. It was rampant in my body. So, dosed me up with antibiotics for 4 years on low dosage for a long time, which is very hard on your body. That got rid of a lot of it, but then my immune system had just taken a beating. I think what's interesting about health is you have to take it in your own hands now. You have to take your own health in your own hands. You have to be knowledgeable, and sometimes you have to hunt. And I hunted, and I found a doctor who treated my symptoms, the things that weren't working in me, and now they're working.
But even as we develop a newer, more positive image of aging, we're distorting the image of what youth and beauty should look like. Commercial fashion images stress a body type that only belongs to a select few. Young girls who haven't stopped growing yet are begging for breast implants. We're distorting the beauty of youth with this almost surreal image that most women can never achieve. But for the fashion and beauty industry, that's the point, isn't it?
I mean, if you look at Princess Diana, for example, there's a rumor that circulates that she admitted that she had a bit of a struggle with bulimia. And I go, hallelujah. Everyone's a bulimic lady. You don't have to puke or abuse laxatives to be bulimic. Bulimia, anorexia nervosa, anorexia, bulimia, basically any type of controlling behavior you have, whether it is extreme calorie counting, weighing your food, knowing every bite of what you put into your mouth at that business dinner, feeling guilty about said, and then fasting for the next 2 days until Monday to, correct your behavior again. Stuff like that really is disordered.
You may not have gotten that bacterial infection from those exact same bites. I had set my body up to be available to get that sick.
I don't honestly know how I made it through like 28 to 35. I don't think I consume more than, I don't know, 1,200 calories a day, max. And we were doing 90-minute shows every night. We were playing 250 days a year. We were traveling. It was stressful. It was just so, it was 20-hour days.
I think we take advantage, certainly when you're a kid, you think you're just indestructible. And I think that if you have stress to your body, so I did a lot of very physical activity that was, like ski racing is pound, pound, pound. So it was a lot of stressful activity on my body. I happened to have one of those crazy energy, I was just like a gnat. And I see it, what's interesting is my dog was like that, and now he's worn out. So as a puppy, he was like that. He was a freak. And I thought, well, I'll just let him be a freak. And now he's worn out at 6. And my mom and I discuss it all the time, is I wonder if that's why it is, because that's what happened to me.
I didn't get period until from 32, until they told me I had to have chemotherapy. They were like, we gotta tell you your periods are gonna stop. I'm like, I had never had one. What are you talking? I haven't had one in so long. What are you talking about? And at the time, my GP went, well, why not? I went, well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, because I'm a vegan. And he's like, well, no, that couldn't really be the only reason. Like, you're probably not getting enough nutrition. But I never felt sick. I never felt tired. I get by on 4 hours of sleep to this day, tops.
Everything counts. Not eating properly. I'm a big anti-sugar person because I just think it's toxic. And it's something like 2 tablespoons lowers your immune system for 4 days or something like that. It's insane.
In hindsight, I think that if my daughter were running around like a mashugana and, emaciated, stressed out, not eating, but getting positive reinforcement ever the while because you're in that industry, I just think that I would probably yank her by her shirt collar home and go, no, you don't.
I ate bacon. I'd come home and go, I'm gonna have a snack of a pack of bacon. I was a crazy kid, and grilled cheese and cream puffs and sugar cereal. And if my mom she knew now, she's like, if I ever knew you were doing that, oh my gosh, right? But we cafeteria at school and coming home and no one being there, I just went for it. So abused my body physically, ran my energy system to the whole, took advantage of the fact that I thought I was indestructible, took on too much emotional stress, worked too hard. I didn't take breaks. So I'd run, burnout, crash. Run, burnout, crash. That's not healthy for anybody. Going 8 hours without eating a meal, that's insane.
I never really ate enough protein as a vegan, and certainly not as a starving, traveling musician who slept in a van and split burritos with her band. I don't think I ever ate enough to create a good muscle tone.
My dear mother, who's 84 years old, had a stroke about 5 years ago. She wasn't used to physical exercise, so even contemplating the level of physical discipline it would have taken for her to regain her mobility was just impossible for her. And so she remains bedridden and frustrated. I compare her to a peer of mine who had a similar stroke last February. But because she'd spent her life practicing yoga and doing gymnastics, she tackled the situation, and just last week, she was dancing at her daughter's wedding. Maybe that's not a fair comparison because of the discrepancy in their ages, but I think I make my point.
I do a half hour of yoga before every performance. So I'm stretched out and I'm limber and I'm ready to go.
I remember years ago trying to get into yoga and made the mistake of asking the instructor when we levitated, because I think that's where I really wanted to go. But I actually took a yoga last summer. I enjoyed it. Didn't realize what a hard workout it was. and it's kind of a, when you go away from the hour, whatever it was, and it was interesting because you ached a little bit all over, which I think is probably a good workout. But a lot of the things about breathing, about centering yourself, and all those things are important in theater. They're important in voice, they're important in whatever character and however you're moving.
There are different ways of looking at the body that we all have to deal with gravity, and certainly as we're aging, the imbalances start showing. And I really became much more serious in terms of like teaching, because I've always taught, because I felt it was a way through other people's body to learn about my own. And it's still the same thing, but at the same time, the beauty about my own skills as a performer, artist, and also athlete is able to really help me to understand what holds people back in their mind, because at the end of the day, you are what you think.
When I travel, I take these exercise bands with me in case there's not a gym or something, so I can just plop it in a door, do some different stuff like that, swimming whenever I can get that in. So I try to more mix it up than anything else. I don't particularly myself like doing weights in a gym that much. I just don't find it that interesting.
Okay, it's easy enough to be tough when you're young, but the real test is, what do you do for fitness and adventure when your hair's turned silver and you've already done everything? Well, music manager Bruce Allen decided that he would climb Mount Kilimanjaro for charity.
What it is a long hike at altitude. So the hike, anybody could do if it was not that high. But when you get up to that height, it's now wrestling with altitude. That's the biggest problem you have. It's not a climb in the sense that you're not hanging from ropes and crampons and going up inside of a mountain. You're not like that. It's a pole, walking, and taking your time and making sure you're handling the altitude right, which means when you get to a certain plateau, you stay there. You don't go up there in 2 days, which you probably could do, because you're not going to make it. If you watch these guys, I watched one guy in a team ahead of us was an Olympic guy for Finland. They packed him out of there after 3 days. He thought he could go up there faster. No, you can't. You got to acclimatize to these different levels. I mean, I was up with guys on that climb who I didn't know they're at the top.
I went up to Grouse Grind yesterday. I doubt if my father could have walked around the house, at the same age, hardly, So, I mean, certainly physical activity. I mean, I've been, a closet athlete for all my later years.
I'm very lucky. I still eat a lot. I don't put on weight. I try to keep active. I do bizarre things, though. I mean, I play hockey with Vancouver Canuck alumni. So, I mean, only I would once a week go out and try to keep up with, world-class athletes. That shows how crazy I am.
As you get older, there's a tendency to not to want to keep on running, as it were. And for me, to keep on running means I have to pay more attention to my body. I have to take more attention as to what I'm putting into it.
It has to do with how you deal with your body. How did you deal with your body? Did you treat your body well?
If you heard of this muscle confusion stuff, so you're always changing your workouts, basically?
The art of looking at how you can tailor the exercise and get the power of those springs into those bodies, doesn't matter what age, takes the age away, or takes the age factor away, or takes the heaviness, that we all feel as baby boomers. And, I'm feeling it as an aging dancer. I'm 47, and I feel, that I'm not 30 anymore. And when I do that 2-hour show that you were talking about, I'm like, oh my God, I need beauty sleep now.
Have you noticed how really gorgeous women are in their late 30s? I think that their late 30s is when they're the most beautiful. And I think it's because they're coming up to that last kind of rush of fertility. And so they're pulling out all the stops, and everything, suddenly their breasts look round and fabulous, and their faces have this gorgeous glow, and they look absolutely kick-ass. And it's because they're about to suddenly lose their fertility. And so it's like getting all the men in for that one last shag that's going to produce raise some fantastic child. It's frightening. I think that after you get past 40, you suddenly sort of become invisible. And I think one of the strategies that you have to have is that you have to develop something more than your looks.
We all have to deal with the fact that we're losing our youth. Maybe it's just a vain thing, but I find the same thing myself.
You've got to get out of your body and into your head, I think, really. And if you do that, the sex will be better as well, because you won't be worrying about what you're looking like and you won't be trying to compete with younger women. And I just think that that's my strategy.
Sometimes, that stress is it's not easy to get rid of. You can't just okay, I'm not going to get, you can't just put it on a shelf all the time. So it takes effort to unstress yourself, to look at what's important, to look at my priorities. But I think overall, for me, the race that I'm running is one of doing the job that I feel I've been made to do.
When you start looking at what you want for yourself and how you see yourself, and you do the work according to meet those needs and those perceptions, then you're okay with your age.
You do reflect back and say, I wouldn't have done this 5 years, 10 years, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have stumbled. But if you begin to recognize that we keep saying 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time, live it to its fullest. If we allow ourselves really to do that, I think you can deal with aging in a more sensible way.
Now, here's our own Coach Malia with his unique take on staying forever young.
I remember when if you wanted to look young, you waited until you were 65 and then you got a facelift. Or you got a whole pile of money and you dated a girl who was 1/10 your age. Hello. That was it. Nowadays, you've got girls in high school and they're getting fake boobs as a graduation present. You've got 40-year-old male executives getting a day at the spa with some spray-on tan, wrinkle remover, and a nut lift. You're trying to look way too young. Fetuses are looking at you going, what's with the freak? Whatever happened to the poor man's plastic surgery? Diet and exercise. Remember that? It's 100% natural, fat-free, and it's good for you. You know what? Maybe exercise isn't for you. I could understand the stuff is heavy and it makes you sweat. But one thing you've got to keep in mind is the man by the name of Jack LaLanne. This guy's 95 years old, and he still works out 2 hours a day. At the age of 65, he was in such great shape that he hauled while swimming chained and shackled 65 boats with 6,500 pounds in them. The man is a monster. He's 95 and he looks fantastic. He doesn't look a day over 70. Hey, remember the Juice Tiger guy? That guy proved one thing. With a steady diet of juice and fun and fruit and tigers, you've got youth and health and exuberance and a crazy set of wild eyebrows. Look, I don't know when it happened, I don't know why it happened, but all of a sudden having gray hair and a couple of wrinkles seems to be a death sentence. It's like we're living in Logan's Run or something like that. Can we just accept that we're all gonna get old at some point in time and age gracefully? Let's show those wrinkles, let's show that gray hair, let's be proud of it. We'll wear it as a badge of honor, because if we don't let those wrinkles and gray hairs show, how are we gonna be able to distinguish ourselves from those young whippersnappers who keep cranking up that newfangled music while they get on my lawn and you sons of air? Anyway, till next time, I'm Patrick Maliha.
Before you decide I'm insufferably shallow for talking about keeping fit to look good, we need to add in what I think is the most important element in being a fit human being of any age: spiritual health. I mean that in the most all-encompassing sense of the word. To me, spiritual health is being true to your own values, honoring your fellow human beings, and all the flora and fauna of this beautiful earth.
My introduction to religions as a child really fueled my fever about faith today. And a lot of my tattoos wound up reflecting it.
There's a part of the fashion world, a part of the art scene that would discount the spiritual part of us as being not of any value. And I see that for me, if I'm going to be in a creative world, to be in touch with the spiritual side of myself and to be in touch with, let's say, the Creator. And it's a very creative thing to be in touch with your Creator.
I never found, let's say, a traditional, like, religious philosophy that I would follow. But, you know, I've always had this kind of thing running in my head was like, trust in God, but lock your car doors, you know? So in other words, I'm not going to sit back and, you know, and just lean into the fates, but I'm going to take action. I'm going to take my own responsibility. But at the same time, I totally believe that there's something.
When I lived in New York in the 70s, I studied Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, which was Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I was doing a show off Broadway, and I heard this Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. One of my cast members was chanting, rubbing her beads, literally. And lo and behold, I asked her what it was about. She told me, and I got involved for 4 years. I was a devout, practicing Buddhist, Nichiren Shoshu Buddhist.
Technically, I was baptized Anglican, but we were raised in the United Methodist church system. And over the years, we would have, Christmas was a birthday party for Jesus.
That particular kind of Buddhism, which deals with cause and effect, which is basically the Judeo-Christian, I think, ethical thing, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, just aligned me and helped to calm me down.
Look up Mooji, M-O-O-J-I, and just listen to him speak. Yeah.
Speaking of wise mentors.
Speaking of how we look at things, how we take life, how we see who we are, you know, there's the way we see it naturally, you know, like how you grew up and the people you know, the circumstances you've gone through, and the fabric of everything you know, okay. But then there's stuff beyond that, and stuff beyond that, and then stuff beyond that. And if you want to ever step outside of what you know, it's a great door to walk through.
The things that create our character and who we are kind of obscure. They don't really, you don't think about them. So I grew up being in two worlds, really. I was on one side, I had a fundamental Christian side to my life, and the other side, I had this way out there fashion sense, and I've always had that. I've always had this idea of, I got a good sense of what's hot and what's not and what's going on. I always had that, but then flip it over and get the other side and then mix that into a pot. And so you get this weird juxtaposition of a person who's sort of living in two worlds.
We only use 10% of our brain or whatever that is. And you have to wonder, well, what's the rest of it there for? What's going on here, you know? You got no way of just, well, let me open mine and just see what's, you know. But if it did open up and start to reveal something about you that you could have never considered in your wildest dreams, wouldn't that be fascinating?
To me, if I'm just living in my world just from what I can see and what I can touch, it's very flat for me. And it's just not a fun place. When I can see it on another level, on a spiritual level, where I can take myself out of the exact world that I'm in and see it on a different, more eternal plane, say, it just makes life so much richer. And why wouldn't I want to do that?
I know people that really follow the path, whether it be Christianity or Judaism or whatever. And I just go, wow, how do you do it? I'm humbled. How do they do it in their life? And they have rich lives. It's hard.
For me, if I look back at my life, I would say that the times when through my hardest times in my career, have been times that obviously then that spiritual side of my life really kicks in and it got me through.
Today, workout gyms are sprouting up everywhere like mushrooms after an autumn rain. Joggers run the seawall like sockeye swimming upstream to spawn. Yoga has the entire nation breathing deeply and stretching those aching muscles. Forever Young, as well as being one of Bob Dylan's most moving ballads, is the aspiration here. When you're young and full of dynamic energy, you need to learn new skills and practice. When you're in your very busy career and family years, you need fitness to give you a break from all your responsibilities and keep your energy levels up. In our mature years, I think staying active is more important than ever. Be realistic about what you can achieve, and then, as the logo says, just do it. I'm Pia Shandel. Thanks for joining us.